this number, 64, that it is supposed to give you some kind of mystical powers? What does it do?
Well, I feel that when you start using it and you start recognizing it and seeing how embedded it is throughout our society, you start realizing that it's something where you could use. I mean, for example, if somebody wanted to enrich their lives through gambling, they might figure out some way to use a doubling of the sequence to help them in a gambling method of some sort. If you wanted to turn around and use it as a form of recognizing how to, for example, with meditation, okay, the navel plexus is considered a plexus that a lotus that has 64 upright tipped petals on a ruby red drop. Now, when you're thinking of how does 64 work, that means that, okay, there's something about the solar plexus and 64 that the ancients recognized, and since it's embedded in all these other systems, let's focus on that navel area and focus on the idea of 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, because if you do, your mental work there is going to start becoming in sympathetic resonance with all of nature within you, because that code is actually embedded into your own cells.
How do you use it, though, in your day-to-day living in order to make things better for you?
Well, I think it's a matter of looking at the where 64s are and looking at examples of them, and then finding out what are the ancient peoples or what are the ancient sages trying to tell us that it's associated with the number 64, and look at what they're trying to tell us, because some of those lessons or those teachings are fundamental things that we should perhaps know in order to activate our soul to its totality.
All right, John, let's tuck away 64 for a moment, and we're going to come back in just a second and talk more about cryptos. John's website, by the way, reptoids.com. Simple as everybody's head, but there is a purpose for it. People can use it. How do you use it in your everyday life?
Well, again, I would say that use the number by going out there and doing the research and putting it on the internet and finding out what type of disciplines that it has connections to it, and then finding out what those disciplines are trying to share with you and follow along those disciplines.
And when you do that, will it change your life for the better?
Well, I don't know. It's like, well, when you read a book like the Quran or the Bible, does it change your life for the better? I think what happens is your need to follow some sort of a target or goal, no matter what it is, leads you on a path of discovering many different things. And when you start looking into 64, you start looking into not only how the nature of the universe is connected with the number, but also you start learning a vast area of disciplines and learning things that I believe enhance your spiritual life.
It's like a revelation will open up for people?
I do believe that. And like I said, this is like an open source thing. This is where we're starting to find this out and make these connections. I would appeal to everybody out there who might feel that they can contribute in some way to enlightening everybody on 64 or what it might be pertaining to in any fields that they know, to just come forward and share it, because I feel that it's something important we need to look at.
Your DVD.
Hi, George. Hi, guest.
Hi.
Hey, Byron.
I just wanted to mention that years ago, I believe it was a guest by the name of Gwyneth McKinnon, and she spoke about the number 8.
Yep.
She said that if you take the number 8, you put it in your pocket and go for a job interview or go to the casino,
you win.
That you were almost guaranteed to win.
Mm-hmm.
And 8 being the root of 8 times 8 is 64.
That's
so
right.
I'm wondering if the guests think that there may be some correlation between those two.
All right. Give us a shot, John. And, of course, Glynis McCants will be one of our guests next week for a portion of a show. Go ahead, John.
Yes, I do. You start looking at those numbers like the 64s coming up, and you'll see them. And they can be associated with other numbers, for, like, example, 72. There's the ancient texts of the Gnostics that talk about the seventh heaven, and they say that when you have a prayer, it goes through 7 heavens. And there's 64 guardians of the entrances of the 7 heavens, and any time your prayer is not deemed worthy, it can be pushed back to the lower heavens before it ever gets a chance to talk to God. And at that point, you've got to repose yourself and start all over again with a stronger prayer. This is almost like snakes and ladders. So you see how the chess game and these other philosophies of ancient times and ancient peoples all overlay the same grid patterns. And so, yes, I do believe that they are connected.
Let's go to Maryland and Flagstaff, Arizona. Hi, Maryland. Thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks.
Sure.
I was interested in the 64 also, and wondered if you had seen a book called The Tao of Chaos by Kate Walter.
No, but it sounds like it's based on the I Ching and the chaos.
It is. And she talks about, in the book, she talks about many of the sciences that are also based on that. But my question is, the ancient way to do the I Ching was to use yarrow sticks, and you count out so many and keep counting, and then it makes the yin or the yang line. And I was wondering, it goes from a base 4 to a binary base 2. And I was wondering if you saw any correlation in any of the other things that you've been working with, that change from 4 to 2 would be important.
Well, we've got 4 is one of the things about the 4 is we're talking about, for example, other faith-based systems like Christianity and the New Jerusalem. They talk in terms of 4 corners. The cherub or the chariot that was seen was said to have 4 corners, and the creatures on it had 64 faces. The descriptions in Ezekiel of the lands that are supposed to be attributed for the holy temples and the holy cities set aside from the rest of the population are actually based on the amount of.
Abby, Manchester, New Hampshire. Thanks for calling, Abby. Go ahead.
Thank you for taking my call. I want to ask first about the that 864 grid, because I'm thinking like aliens are supposed to have like 4 fingers, so 2 4s put together like a whole hand, like 2 hands would be an 8, because we put our hands together, we have a 10.
Right.
And we have a 10-base system.
Well, that's right.
And I read this old article a long, long time ago about ancients. They were based on a 12-base system, like you had 2 6-fingered hands put together. Like our time is 12-based, our degrees are like 12-based, and like some other ancient things are 12-based.
Yeah, we have 12-based measurements like in a ruler, but then we also have something called an imperial ruler, which has notches that make up 64 different segments. Where actually the halfway point is at 32.
Right, so that'd be 2 4-fingered hands put together.
Right.
Which
yeah, I agree. I agree with that. That's very fundamental thinking.
I've got to tell you, I love the show, and tonight your guest is just blowing me away. He really is.
Hey, appreciate that.
A quick statement, and then I have a question for you, John. The number 64 has been my lucky number for about 10 years now. And I always was fascinated by the number because I was in the computer industry for about 20 years, and I saw 64. I mean, everything that's led up to 64-bit architecture. 64 is just everywhere. Everywhere in computer engineering, absolutely everywhere, and in programming and in different languages and stuff. But I started noticing things about 10 years ago that the number 64 was actually everywhere in my life. Anywhere that anything good had happened for me, 64 was present. It's in my home address. It's in my wife's Social Security number. It's in my mother's Social Security number. It was on my license plate. I mean, literally everywhere. And I found it incredible that you mentioned gambling, because I actually devised a strategy for the hand 64 in poker. So in the casinos, I'm known for that hand.
Oh, really?
Interesting. Very interesting.
They let you in, huh?
Yeah, it's actually won for me so much it's gotten to become a joke almost.
Well, the casinos have heard about it now, I guess.
No. I mean, when the hand gets turned up in the 664, they just say, "Oh, that's Robert's hand." I mean,
right.
So all my friends and family, they always associate the number with me, and I deliberately put it in my email address. I mean, so you're just blowing my mind tonight by going on about all your revelations about the number.
It's so fascinating. There's 64 generations from Adam to Jesus. There were 64 years between the death of Jesus and the writing of Revelations by John at Patmos. You've got, so you have all of this embedded through all of these ancient mysteries, through all of the ancient number systems. It fits in with Nassim Haramehn's, vector equilibrium and the tetrahedron, star tetrahedron. This is something that I believe one day, with further research, and like I said, open source at this point, I'm asking everybody to come forth and see what they can find out. But I believe this is going to be possibly one of the major discoveries since the Fibonacci series, when we find out what this number is and how it's been used by the elite around the world who have tried to keep it, who have tried to keep us from knowing about it.
Yeah, a lot of people would have to decode it, though, and figure it out, don't you think?
Absolutely. That's why it's open source. That's like saying, everybody step forward. I have at my fingertips here at my lips, I could say, through this phone, I have millions of people out there who are genuinely interested in discovering and getting to the bottom of some of these greater mysteries in life, and 64 is absolutely one of them, and I invite every one of them to look into this mystery to see what they can discover, because it takes you on a personal journey. It's like saying to somebody, it's not the goal that's important, it's the journey that's important. So goals are great to set, to get your eyes on a destination, but enjoy the fruit of the journey, because if you don't reach your goal, you don't want to end up upset or not happy or anything. You have to have a completion come about you. And this is what 64 is. It's about embodiment of spirit, the cosmos, and the founding of your own life on Earth.
Yeah, I played chess for years, and it never dawned on me that it had this kind of mystical power.
Oh my God. Hey, listen, Bobby Fischer. Okay, we're old enough to remember him, right?
The late Bobby Fischer.
The late Bobby Fischer. Okay,
Yep.
World chess champion. As a matter of fact, chess was used as a device of battle between the Soviet Union and the Western.
That's right.
And the Western
Who
nations.
did he play? He played Boris Spassky.
Right, absolutely. And see, 64 was such a part of his life that when Bobby Fischer reached 64 years of age, he died.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No.
That's interesting.
Well, it's kind of like Schultz, who wrote the Peanuts comic book. He spends his whole life on the Peanuts comic book, and then the last day it actually goes to press, he dies.
At 64?
Well, it wasn't at 64, but the point being here is his mind was set on the character of Peanuts, and that became his life.
Yeah.
So when he felt like his life was in completion, that was it. That was time to move over to the next adventure.
Pine Flats here. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, remember, the whole thing about 64 is live your life till 64, but after 64, it's practice your spirituality to get ready for corporeal separation, which means you're separating from your physical body. It doesn't mean you're going to die. Death doesn't exist. It just means you leave this dense, fleshy thing, this water bag filled with all these organisms that you think is you. Okay, and you're actually the pilot. You're the pilot on a magnificent starship called a human body. And it's got its own force fields and generators. And your soul is riding along in this, and this 64 is going to ignite something in you once you start hearing it. 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. It extends forward. You can see that with like the caller said a few minutes ago, into computing. It's all over the place. This is no accident. It's right in front of us. Let's go to JJ, Pine Flats, Arizona, west of the Rockies. Hi, JJ. Go ahead.
Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to share something with you. About 3 years ago, my neighbor...
Indicate precisely what you mean to say. You're sincerely wasting away. Give me your answer, fill in the phone.